Hello, welcome to this video about my student planning, and in it we're going to be talking about how it's being used and ways that you can use this yourself. To give a bit of background to the student planning document, it's a PowerPoint, I decided a good few years ago that my planning needed to be divided into the planning that was for teachers, I myself, or those who wish to see it, and the planning that would be seen by the students. And, like with all good pieces of administration organisation, I aimed that everything the students would see would only have to be written once. John Hattie, in his evidence-based meta studies, speaks about how expert teachers don't necessarily plan individual lessons in detail, but rather that they have an expert, intricate idea of the threads of learning throughout lessons. And it is with that idea that I created this PowerPoint. And I termed it Planning for Students because it's planning that the students will see. So, as you can see, the prime aspect of this is my timetable, as it is there. And it contains around it a number of extra functions. Now, here, for example, it has the rubrics for the new AQAGC curriculum, which is what I'm teaching at the moment. It also has a link to techniques by language, form and structure. It has links to spelling, vocabulary and influence sheets. A link to the Today I Learned, I just read it, Today I Learned. It has links to some of my ECAs, and that's extracurricular activities after school, and some of the PD sessions that I run as well. And then it has a link to a generic structure of activities that can be done through judgment at the point of the lesson that is useful. So to show an example of how this works, I maximize this. And upon maximizing it, I can choose the first lesson. So let's say this is my lesson last week. And immediately you can see that there's some pen visuals here representing the lesson that we're about to take. Now, to show you here, each lesson involves the students for the first 10 minutes answering 6 questions and then reading in silence. The purpose of these 6 questions is for these first students to think. We have this online stopwatch object, which has been activated by macro, operating the PowerPoint slider as well. I have some excellent timers, but that is by far the most superior because it allows me to have the PowerPoint open at once. And as you can see, I've got the animated GIF background for the incarnations that you can see there too. The nature of the questions comes from a wonderful blog that I discovered recently called Short English Reflection. And this principle here is simple. 3 questions for the class that need to be, I think, 1 or 2 word answers based on last lesson, give the student confidence and activate their thinking to consolidate learning that hopefully occurred before. After that, question 4 is one that should relate to last week. Question 5, ideally, is a question that relates to work completed last term. And then question 6 is the extension question that requires students to connect work from last term to this term. And here we take on the PSL class and they will be quite useful into their illustration. Just as an aside, I recently read Read and Reconsidered. It's a Doug Lamont published book from the chart schools in America. There's that book doing? And as a book, it disturbs me and it makes me realize a whole other aspect of reading which I am not yet engaged in myself. Many practical areas, and doing that to enhance. So, as you can hear from this music, students come to the classroom, they know their routines, and they immediately answer these questions and then read their book. Music itself, not intrusive. See, there's another posted on this website by the NHS. So, for the to the end, I pause the timer, and that's essential. As it's going to and then I scoot to the top here. With my learning objectives, I have type of learning, the cognitive verb stem here at the start. And my score in particular, that relates to some wider structures of our thinking skills too. The content is underlined afterwards. And I use Carol Dweck's ideas, Zoe Elder's ideas of the component of learning objectives. And we must wonder what it is for students to see some of the mechanical language used by teachers in their planning. I think that the kind of language that the students see here needs to be the language that they would use somewhat themselves. This is not an academic language either. So homework comes on the very first day. Bear in mind that I set homework at the start of the lesson because it allows questions to be asked, gives it importance, and then it is extended on our use of the website Show My Homework, which I think is useful. So, once we've gone through the questions in the ways appropriate, we then focus on 3 questions of learning. And I come back to time and time again about the idea of how it is hard thinking that leads to learning. Students ask these questions, and I can bob back to the slide if necessary. And then we come to the lesson itself. And in this, you're going to see that I have 3 methods of having text boxes over the compelling picture backgrounds. First is yellow, the thought bubble style. That's a question that almost always I want the students to discuss and think about at some length. And again, if you see some of my lesson videos, you can see examples of this. So, we have a starter, nice and generic. This is useful. So this is our GCSE Magnificent 7, looking at the 3 learning objectives here for AO1 and AO2. And I really like this graphic. I'm suggesting the inner life of the students. And again, the question here relates to the exact aspect of those assessment objectives that I'm looking at. Okay, so again, more graphics, a question, more graphics there to aid. Now, with the blue boxes, they consist of the teaching points. And here I didn't read this out, I guided the students to the controversial aspect of Karen Duffy, how it contrasted with position as poet laureate, and about how, as a poet laureate, she still took on the viewpoint of minority and disturbed characters. Okay, so I can tell the next slide is going to be a PowerPoint video because it's taking its time to load. Having worked in Beijing before, I really now appreciate the ability to embed YouTube videos, and I think that's an important touch. So, it's reading a poem, and I don't know if slides been missed out, but I think it might have been. I asked students to look at their expectations of the poem, and I think expectations before the poem and after the and how they're met or not is essential. So, worked at this. And then there's a series of other questions that we have here as well. Okay. And then, again, we've got some animations to show transitions. So, that's an example of one lesson. Another lesson that we have will be from my Year 11 class, where, again, as you can see similarly here, we have a different background, but we have the 6 questions. Again, the 3 questions focused learning. And in here, we have a visual. Again, this one is intending to instigate thoughts about fairy tales and fantastical realms. And here I'm going to demonstrate the music, the library button. So I click through on here, and it takes us into a music library button. A lot of computer game music here. I'll put on some Skyrim. And when I press that button, it takes us through to the next slide. I can then go on to the next slide if necessary. That means we'll play on a loop as long as I need to. Now, with this, if I want to stop the music, use the keyboard, it's escape. I do the Shift F5, or Shift F5. Maybe that's working. I also have a gaming mouse where I've hotkeyed the exiting and the opening of the slideshow via the mouse. And I think a wireless mouse is really important for the use of compelling PowerPoints. The ability to move around the class and to change to the next slide in accordance with your explanations is a tremendous benefit. Okay, so one thing I must say about the PowerPoint for students is that it is a large file. It's about half a gig. And as part of that size, when it starts to save the auto recovery file, that can take some time. Okay. What I'm going to say as well is when it comes to planning, it's fairly straightforward to cut and paste other PowerPoints into this. And again, it's fairly easy to navigate and change the questions with the lesson. So if you're changing these questions in the lesson, I do that on a weekly basis before the start of the day. I may change a question according to the work before. And again, I think what's quite useful is to be able to change the question later in the week in accordance with the learning of the students actually at that time. So what I mean by that is, the students learn something that is of particular importance and they're very clear about it there and then I'll place a question to recover that, or to recount that rather, or both later on in that day. So another aspect of the planning for students is the ability to jump to a variety of tasks as useful. So say for example you want the generic spectrum of belief or the opinion continuum, you can press this and then using whatever annotation software you have on your board or similar, you can write down some questions here. Now I'm going to try out a tablet laptop and I think that will be particularly useful for these kind of questions. And again, you click onto this, Gary Critique, that's quite a nice one. And again with homeworks you can ensure that you have a variety of points where the students can actually assess those homeworks. Series of generic starters, so on and so forth. Okay. The next thing I want to show you is the rubrics. So with the Key Stage 3 rubrics, the students can see the various assessment objectives. We take something like the language, form and structure, and we can see how this is divided into 4 separate sections. So for example, if we're looking at the idea of form, and we were trying recently to understand how the form of a sonnet demonstrated the kind of love Shakespeare intended to express in Sonnet 130. Now of course for us to understand the form of one style of poem, we decide we can understand the form of other styles of poems. So here for example, we looked at several poems. We discussed the meaning of Sonnet 130 as we saw it, looked at some historical context behind it, and again tried to look at some expectations of language and structure and sonnet form. And again, students, through their ability to integrate some analysis of form at the end of your generic language analysis paragraph, could then see if they had simple sum, clear and detailed analysis. And it was remarkably pleasing how students were able to be precise in their, and honest in their self-reflection. Of course, that shows how much they learned straight after an event. By its nature, the feeling of learning is strong. What's important is, I think here, their understanding that simple and sum are really the nature, is really the nature of first steps towards learning something properly. This word perceptive, I've heard recently, I think it was on my audio book on How We Learn, a series of great lectures, I forget who's by, where if we want to ask ourselves what perceptive means, we can place our hand between ourselves and the teacher. We close the left eye and the right eye, the left eye and right eye, both of them. We ask ourselves which impression of the hand is true, and the different perceptions of that hand shows us that understanding, shows understanding from different perspectives. It's one metaphor for understanding abstraction. So that is our planning for students. Very useful. Takes probably, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours maybe, on the day before the week starts to bring it all together. But for me, it's Ofsted standard lessons every week. It means I have all my resources in one place. It allows me to be planned, but also to be responsive to what the students need. And yeah, it's really good. So, any interest in this, see my other posts. Hope this is useful.